It is Tuesday, rawmike.richards.com, broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto, 234 King Street East in downtown Toronto. Coming up today, Leafs lose to Colorado. And Bernier is the greatest goalie who ever lived. Kind of a celly that's been talked about by Austin Matthews. Kind of spurred on by what is perceived to be a terrible call by the official previously. Also coming up on today's show, something interesting. Our guest, something called Players for the Planet. And we're going to have... I just want to make sure, because I've got two names up here.
Yeah, it's Chris Dickerson.
Yeah, it's Chris.
Yeah.
You would know him, I guess, a lot of people, because he played for a bunch of teams. But I would say the Baltimore Orioles, is it fair to say, would be where he played the most?
Yes, sir.
So the organization's called Players for the Planet. There's a lot of guys doing it, Dave. There's a lot of people sort of spread. So we'll get the idea on what exactly that is. We'll also take a look. There's always football talk. A classic, by the way, from the Mike Richards collection. You know, the Nylons were a annoying singing group back in the 80s and 90s. Huge, probably in Canada only, and mostly sang it like Grey Cups and stuff. It was that a cappella group that was, they sang the Line Sleeps Tonight. You know.
That's right.
That really horrible song that...
you know who sings that a lot to me?
Who?
When I see him in public?
Who?
Coach Frank.
Coach Frank, does he? Does he do the... A wee ma whip, a wee ma whip.
No, he does the other part. He.
That song sucks so bad. It almost ruined an entire vacation. We were down in Cabo San Lucas, and we went on one of these snorkeling cruises. It just so happened, this has almost never happened to me before, because you've probably never seen it. When I go to an all-inclusive, they lose on me. They might win on other people, but they take a hit when I get out there, and it's like, Buenos dias, señor. ¿Cómo estás? I said, listen, okay. I understand what you're saying. But how's about making me a Long Island iced tea? Oh, the bar doesn't open to 10. It opens now. Abierto e hora, güey. Okay. I get in there and I start going and I don't stop till I fall asleep. This day I happen to get up and I'm hungover a little bit, Dave. Which
Weird.
You've never seen. Never.
No, never.
Because they almost had... There was no alcohol left after I showed up the first day. Cabo San Lucas, by the way, I love. So we go on one of these scuba or snorkeling cruises. So we get out there, and of course, the catamaran's going like this in the water. Boosh, boosh. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I feel bad. Maybe once I get into the water, I'll be okay. But it's hot. It's Mexico hot. So there's all these party boats. They're all in a big circle where we go snorkeling. Everyone gets in. So you can imagine, it's hot. You jump in the water, but you still have all that gross equipment on you. All the other people are swimming way too close. And it's kind of shallow for me. So it turns into what I like to call a human stew. And I'm like, it's not refreshing at all. I got to get out of here. And guess what? You got the snorkel on? When you're... What a bad way to die. I'll be like John Bonham. You know, so how'd he die? He threw up in a snorkeling mask? Wow, you're like Janis Joplin. You're Mama Cass, except not the cheese sandwich. So I go back to the boat, and everyone else is still in the water. And I'm trying to get my strength back. And by strength back, you know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
I start hitting the booze again. But just before I feel okay, there's one party boat. And you know how sound travels across the water?
Yep.
I'm like, I hope, I get some tunes soon. And they crank it. You're like, a weem, a whip, a weem, a whip, a weem. Hee-hoo-hee-hoo-hee. I'm like, oh. Like it literally is going to make me sick. So the guy goes, ¿qué te pasa, señor? I said, okay, here's what I need. Yo necesito alcohol, anything. Rum and Coke, tequila, whatever you got. He goes, tequila, get tequila, I have tequila in my pants. And so I start pounding back, and he goes, we have some tunes. ¿Qué te gusta? What do you like? Rock and roll. Do you like Van Halen? Van Halen?
Yes.
Get me that bottle of tequila. Give me some rum and cokes. Get me whatever you got going, and crank the Van Halen. And guess what I was saved by? Panama.
Okay, that's not bad. I was gonna go more Beautiful Girls because of that start, and it's more of an outdoor song.
I needed help. It was like Van Halen stat.
Okay, that's fine. You're
Panama came on, and I was saved. Here's here's one from Coach Frank already.
Here we go.
He's watching. He always watches. Mike, I'm going to have to plead guilty on that song.
See?
But that's only after Dave serenades me with this 80s classic, the Culture Club, Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? In the Wedding Singer.
Do you really want to make me cry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Wedding Singer, that was the best. Do you realize that's an Arquette? That's an Arquette. David Arquette
Yes.
and Rosanna and all that. Rosanna Arquette.
Yeah, the sister, exactly.
And then the one that played Cards. Was it Cards or whatever? There's a bunch of them. The dude who sang that is that was an Arquette. That's all I'm saying. Everything, and else will say I'll get into trouble. Speaking of trouble,
yes,
roast beef. The Leafs in trouble. I mean, what is going on
What's
there?
so promising on Saturday night?
And you had
you were strutting around here like a Proline commercial after that Ottawa Senators game.
Like they've had one regulation win in how many games now? Not 12.
It was the one against Ottawa was their first regulation win since the 28th of December.
That's scary.
Yeah. From what I saw, because I missed most of the third period last night, I thought they played a pretty decent game. I thought they looked fine. Colorado's just a hot team. They have right now the best player in the NHL in Nathan MacKinnon. He's playing not the best in the world, but right now in the NHL, he's the best player. They've won 10 straight, and give credit to Bernier. I thought he played a pretty good game last night.
Well, he's won 9 straight.
9 straight for him.
So the issue with the crease and goaltenders was that a penalty, no penalty, or was goal, no goal. I mean, depending on how you look at it.
It was a goal. I fully believe it was a goal. That being said, when Matthews comes back his next shift and scores, it like about a minute later, it's still 2-1, so didn't make that much of a difference on the game.
As Wes McCauley would say when he's facing the camera, the player made contact with the goaltender, therefore, no goal. Honestly,
Are you fucking kidding?
honestly, that was so a goal. They were jobbed.
Yeah.
They were the player did make contact with the goaltender, but if you look and Russell read out the rule to me because he carries, it's weird, he carries an NHL rule book with him.
He carries a lot of things.
Yeah.
You don't want to know everything.
So he read the actual rule. If there is contact, that is not overly significant. I forget the actual wording of it. The play actually continues, and the goal is.
See.
Like I don't get how the NHL's version of goals and no goals changes from night to night.
Because, Dave, it goes back to another conversation we had, and in that instance it was football. The problem with replay, as much as I understood it with the advent of replay in getting certain plays right, now we're so reliant on the minuscule that I'll be honest. Do we technically, right now, know what a catch is in football?
Nope.
Do we know what goalie interference is?
No.
Because I don't think we do. I don't think the players do. And, how about, issues in baseball where they want to bring more of it into? It has ruined aspects of the game, and I don't think they've got it right. I mean, there are some managers who I'm sure it makes them sick when they have to wait and see if the phone rings or whatever, if they have to make a challenge. Because that ain't baseball, folks. That's the farthest thing away from the American pastime where guys get out there, a little dirt in the hands. You know what I mean? It really has that aspect of You play against me, and we're going to see who wins. If there's mistakes, whatever, umpires. And now it's going into the hands of electronics. And what we've seen in other sports, especially football, it has made the game longer. And to a degree, it has muddied what were kind of simplistic rules into the minuscule. They have wrecked sports.
Bingo. Can we get some more Russell music? Because I wanna lead the witness here on my next trial.
This will not be good. I can guarantee you. This is going down a bad path.
So, Russell, pick up the microphone for a second, please. I have a question for you.
Would the defendant please pick up the microphone and not make that face, please?
Thank you.
Your Honor, that is a hostile witness.
Now, don't talk about yesterday's game because Colorado won. The Leafs could have won that game. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Based on talent, you have the Colorado Avalanche roster. You have the Maple Leafs roster. Who has the better roster?
That's tough.
No. I think you know the answer. I think you know the answer.
I'm sure the Leafs. The Leafs are a deeper team.
Okay, let's go Leafs with that. Based on the second-year head coach with the Avalanche and the already Hall of Famer Mike Babcock, who has the better coaching staff?
The Leafs have the better coaching staff.
So when you look at the two goaltenders, Jonathan Bernier has the... Thank you, Russell. That was fantastic. Jonathan Bernier has a better goals against than Frederik Andersen, has the same percentage as far as save percentage is concerned, and has a much better winning percentage as far as record on the lesser team with the lesser coaching staff. Would you say, Russell, maybe the better goaltender just won the game yesterday?
In that game last night, yes. Overall, no.
Your Honor, could I just get a yes or no, please? Your Honor, it's a hostile witness.
I'm just fooling around with him, that's all.
The witness is now crying. By the way, I also saw the witness just moments ago in the mirror doing that Taylor Swift, shake, 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 gonna shake it. Oh, Russell, no.
The funniest thing, and you know, I'm sorry, this is just an opinion. The funniest thing is when the Colorado Avalanche signed Jonathan Bernier as a backup, I was actually surprised Jonathan Bernier got an NHL contract because I thought the time was up. I thought it was time up. I thought that, you know, I know they were looking for a backup because they lost a backup in expansion, but I thought, okay, well, Jonathan Bernier's time is very close to expiring, and then he pulls this season. The guy's earned himself another contract, probably a multi-year contract after this year, and I'm not going to say he's going to push Semyon Varlamov out of the starter role, but he's clearly the better goaltender this season, even with Varlamov on the sidelines with an injury.
Dave, I also believe that there is something to environment, sometimes good, sometimes bad. When he's in Los Angeles, he's not going to win the starting job because you have Jonathan Quick. But when he was in that environment, he played well.
Oh, yeah.
So when he got in there, he also had the support of that team that they had, that roster at the time for the Kings.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Oh, yeah.
But he did play to a level that when he came to Toronto, my feeling was, nice pickup.
Yep.
This was solid. Whatever issues existed in Toronto, it just affected him so badly that it literally put him in that category, as you said, Dave. The NHL has very it's not tunnel vision, but once they have deemed, Dave, that you're not a number one and you go to a number two, almost 100% of the time you don't get to be a number one again. It just the NHL doesn't think that way. James Reimer has always felt that he was a number one.
Yep. But
the rest of the league's like,
yeah.
And
James Reimer was on an island in that category.
Yeah, so he wasn't going to win that. For guys like, I think Craig Anderson has bounced around a little bit in some of the teams that he's been with.
Brian Elliott's probably in that same category.
Yeah. But we're talking one hand, and we're talking it's very rare. Because the fact is, when people talk about athletes and them not playing well or not playing up to their whatever they thought the standard was, the reality is guys who are consistent in the biggest leagues in the world, at the top level of that competition, it's so hard, Dave, to be good all the time. That's why when I talk about Tom Brady, it almost isn't real. When you take a look at goaltenders, pitchers, guys who have a singular role, like even Halladay, for instance, he was good for a long. These guys have been consistently the top of their given league in their given sport for years. That isn't the norm. The norm is Jonathan Bernier. The norm is, quite frankly, guys who play in the league, the average normal guy, Dave, what is it? In all leagues? In all leagues, it's about 3.5 years, I think.
Yeah, in most leagues, exactly. Yeah.
All totaled.
Yeah.
We just know the superstars, and therefore our comparisons are to guys that are usually in another universe. They're in another league. For instance, is Kadri underperforming as a Maple Leaf, or is he playing to the best of his ability? He had some bright moments, but now he's playing to truly the level that he's at. Should you expect more from Nazem Kadri? I don't think you do. Because is he someone that is worthy of being on that roster? Does he serve a purpose and a role for Coach Mike Babcock? I think he does. I don't think I'm going to go, geez, I can't believe he's not scoring 25 goals. I don't think that's realistic. And if he does have a season where he scores 25 goals, then there's your bonus right there.
Well, I think last year people looked at that and said, the true Nazem Kadri. This is guy who's going to be the next 10 years, right? And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I just don't. I think you have to be realistic.
Very useful player, though. Very useful.
Absolutely, 100%.
And 20 should always be the goal for a player like that. Maybe not 30, but and you know what? He's on pace for that. He'll hit 20. I bet you Nazem Kadri scores at the end of the season. Nazem Kadri will be a 22, 23 goal scorer.
And everyone should be good with that.
Yeah.
Considering the role that he has on the team, and then you add in the 20 and change that he's going to get, I'm fine. I'll sign the contract. But just know what you are. Know what this is. This whole thing about, during that bridge contract and leverage, I guess you roll the dice a little bit. But as far as I'm concerned, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. I don't see disappointment. And I'll tell you who doesn't see disappointment as well. And that's Mike Babcock.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's really liked the way that
guy's
Nazem has played.
Big fan of Nazem Kadri's.
Yeah.
Huge fan.
Yeah.
For him not to leave a lineup after not scoring a goal for almost 20 games. Oof.
Yeah, you got to be doing something right.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the Selly, have we shown that on the camera so far? Okay, so after the goal that was called back, Austin Matthews, what was that, like 120 seconds later? Like, it was only a couple of minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did his Andy Van Helleman.
Yeah, so he does the big goal. Did you like that?
It's okay. I think Twitter made a bigger deal about it. I mean, momentum spun him around, and then he stuck his hand out at the goal like he was pointing goal. It was like, yeah, I guess it's
like
okay.
it's trending right now because of the Selly. And
if you want, preferably, I'm more of a Mitch Marner Selly after the Ottawa Senators game. That goal he scored, and he does the drop the leg, and I like that more than anything else. But I mean, I don't know, like I should say Austin Matthews drinks a Coke, and it's like, oh man, let's send this out to Twitter.
Speaking of that,
and let's get this trending. TLM talk.
Yes, everything goes better with. I haven't had a Coke in the little glass bottle with the little indents on it.
The Coke tastes better. The Coke tastes better with a glass bottle.
All drinks do.
No, just
all
Coke.
drinks. I love milk. Get it in the glass. Glass is good. Have you gone to a store and bought it in glass
Actually,
that used to be
I
delivered?
have seen, yeah.
Oh, cold milk in glass. That's the way you want to go.
A lot of people don't remember.
Nope.
Like people like this. Milk used to be delivered to people's houses.
There was a Second World War? Yeah, there were two. Speaking of so there's the big as you said, Andy Van Helleman sort of celebration.
Yeah, Wally Harris, you can go with that too.
So what gets players upset? We're going to talk once again to Chris Dickerson at the bottom of the hour and get his take on a couple of things. But the bat flip. Now, when Jose Bautista does it, people lose their minds. And it becomes this whole thing that you shouldn't do it. Remember, mostly the American audience and of course, you talk about Texas. This was the biggest insult. This was just horrible when he did this. So remember how dramatic it was in the most dramatic moments. I'll have to admit, like that was just a crazy moment in that series. I think when you go through the archives of the Toronto Blue Jays, even in another 50 years, the bat flip is in there. Mm-hmm. The bat flip moment is in there.
It is.
But does it incite necessarily bad feelings on the other side? We're going to see a clip. This is property probably of NCAA sport. I would think this could even be property of the ACC. This is courtesy of ESPN. This is a playoff game between that's the University of Miami, and Boston College. There's going to be something that incites these teams to clear the bench. The announcer says, it's because of the bat flip. When you see it, I don't think it's so much the bat flip. I think it's the way that, I believe the player's name is Siri, goes around the bases.
Siri, like can you hit the home run?
Well, that's why I thought. I go, Siri, what's he talking about? Home run? Hitting home run. Boop. Well, this is what this dude does, but the way he goes around the bases and the way they celebrate, I don't think it was the bat flip, folks. I think it was just people acting like they've never hit a home run before. Once again, property of all the things I just said.
Fastball inside, stay inside, shoot it to right field.
Left center field and deep. Hogarth is back. Grand slam! The second home run of the game by Michelangeli. He's driven in 7, and he
goes right up the catcher. See right there?
With a bat
Okay,
flip.
now keep watching. I'm going bat flip. What is-
Michelangeli putting good at bats.
Now watch what happens
Today's
after,
game,
how they
yesterday,
celebrate.
tough
It's like
one for him.
ridiculous. No, it's a grand slam in a big college game. I get it. But then,
And here,
here we go.
Oh, now both benches are emptying, so that bat flip certainly irked the opposing dugout.
So the bat flip. So we have not seen it yet.
Both benches have emptied.
I think it's the galloping and going right by the catcher and probably
Totally.
saying something. That's what that was. Now watch the bat flip.
Near the first base coach's box. There is an undercurrent of tension between these two coaching staffs. And I don't think you can get around that. And right now you look at Jim Foster, the BC pitching coach.
So we need to see it, correct? We need to see this bat flip. I'm thinking, okay, I guess that could do it.
These two sides were civil with each other for the first 2 games.
I don't even see it as a bat flip, to be honest.
But it's no secret. I wouldn't go as far to call it as bad blood, but
Yeah, gee, what a violent bench
they're not
clearing.
having beers after the game. Put
Not.
it that way.
Okay, boys, let's get to the replay.
Mike Gambino trying to restrain his pitching coach. So let's see what the carnage is.
Now, the replay should be coming up. Sorry for the...
one of those situations.
All righty.
And I'm a big believer. I'm not. Players, they got to take care of this. Coaches should be the other way around.
Here it comes.
You got to push them up. Go to your dugout.
Now watch.
Michelangeli saw it, watched it, bat flip.
That's a
He
bat
did
flip?
that against NC State in the ACC.
Here it comes
There was
again.
a lot of outrage on the internet.
Here it
There was
comes.
a lot of outrage from some media. Some folks loved it. Some folks chalked it up to the emotion of the
That's
game.
just- That
Apparently, it did not play well.
Well, I don't like the walking off of the hit. That's one thing that kind of would irk me. But more than anything is his trip from third base to home plate
was brutal.
was horrendously.
And the catcher
bad.
was right there, and I thought at one point
yeah.
the catcher was going to do something.
The catcher should have done
Yeah.
something at that time because that's your open hit right there because you have the team at home plate and you have that area between catcher player because if anything's said between them, which clearly looks like it is, that's where you get your first contact of a punch or a glove to the face or anything, and then it should have started. That should have been based on that celebration. That should have been a lot worse than what we saw. Like that was sissy-ish.
To me, a bat flip is, you actually got to, the bat actually flips around
Sure.
and you do it in dramatic fashion.
I think we've seen a very good version.
The best of all time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But then there was this word that sort of continued on about bat flip. Well, simply he couldn't have been the first person in the history of baseball to do that. But it was the Zorro, that kind of moment.
Oh, yeah.
This was like he just sort of tossed the bat off to the side. I wouldn't even call that a bat flip.
Nope.
But is it a no-no? Is it sort of, there's that code of conduct and even code amongst players. Is that breaking the code? If you do a bat flip ever in any kind of moment, and let's face it, that one, as I said, for Jose Bautista, that was one of the biggest baseball moments, probably, I would say, I said historically, even though it's not a World Series, but it was a big moment in a playoff game. Everyone's going to remember it.
There's a two-way street. It's funny too because a Bautista flip where it's up in the air and he admires it and so forth, that would call for an instant pitch to the next time this guy is actually hitting. An incident like that, nothing until he comes around third base and because honestly if that doesn't look like they'd play a next game, because that looks like, without knowing the circumstance, that almost looks like it's a game clinching or a series clinching. But if they actually played the next night and that guy didn't take a ball at the numbers,
Yeah.
and his next at bat, there would have been something wrong. And that's just baseball logic right there. But bat flip, no, I think the announcers got that wrong. It was completely what was said and how he even taunted. He danced. He basically
it's the moonwalking around the bases that I didn't like.
He's 6 feet in front of the home plate and he starts doing that. It's like, ooh. I mean, I would almost expect a team to retaliate in hockey and football and like any sport, not just baseball. So, oh well.
We're going to talk a little bit about players for the planet as we are going to attempt Skype, which is, again, that's always a gamble. Chris Dickerson, former MLBer, a lot would know from Baltimore, I think, which was his most significant time.
The area code isn't Baltimore, but yeah, I think it's in the Phoenix area.
Oh, nice.
California, I'm not sure.
Hello.
Hi, I'm looking for Chris Dickerson. It's Mike Richards calling from rawmikeRichards.com.
Yeah, this is Chris.
Hey, Chris, we're on the air. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We were just talking a little baseball here, and, of course, what you have started and what maybe some people still don't know about, and we're talking about players for the planet. So I thank you so much for joining us here early today on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
So explain exactly what this is, what it's about, and again, sort of the concern for the environment of the planet. A lot of people would wonder, why a baseball player?
I mean, I didn't really design it that way. I think it was just a result of my upbringing and basically just kind of my location of just growing up in Southern California. But I think it was a myriad of things that happened while I was growing up, and then kind of going into this current decade where we're at environmentally. But growing up, with especially being in LA with the smog and ocean pollution, deforestation, and massive development that affects wildlife and displaces a lot of wildlife. So just in my simple microcosm of Los Angeles, I think it encompasses everything that's going on around the world as far as just irresponsibility with our natural resources and the biodiversity loss as the population starts to increase. So kind of observing that as a kid, and as I got older, I stumbled upon Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth, and kind of really opened up my eyes to the global scale in which this issue has spread, and the severity of it. And it wasn't until probably the year after that I read another article, and when I got to the big leagues, I really wanted to use my platform and my voice for something that I truly believed in, that's something that has affected me. And it's going to continue. That's not just going to affect, my particular special interest, which you see a lot of, and it's no disrespect to any other charitable organization, but you see that most are very specific to their particular passion or their particular concern. But this itself and the environment is something that will affect everybody and will affect generations to come. So I decided to get together with a buddy of mine, Jack Castle, who was pitching for the San Diego Padres at the time, and this was after the initiative that I was doing in the clubhouse to try to cut down on plastic was covered by MLB and ESPN.com, and the feedback that I got, I realized that there was a demand for somebody to step up and kind of take this situation by the horns, especially in the sports world, because as you know, sports, we generate so much trash. I mean, if you think about the four major sports, the amount of trash that's generated every night, especially in baseball with 162 games, the amount of trash is it's incredible. So this was my fight back, I guess.
Well, and you bring up a really good point too. And I think anyone that's involved in charitable works or certainly in a foundation, sometimes it's about the weight and your ability to get those of influence and, quite honestly, money to understand and believe in what the movement is all about. And you just mentioned, Major League Baseball. So, are owners sort of involved? Do you work openly with them to understand because of the venues and actually, quite frankly, some of the environments that they go into when they're building? Is this sort of a cooperation that you do get from MLB ownership?
No, we've tried to work with owners, just something that as simple as getting them to overhaul their concession packaging. And the truth is, it really just comes down to money. That's a huge overhaul for them, and likely they have contracts that are pre-existing contracts that are 2-3 years old. And by making a massive switch to environmentally friendly packaging and concession packaging, that would cost them millions of dollars, and it's just something that they're not really willing to do, which is unfortunate. But you are seeing some changes from the standpoint as far as solar power. Washington is a LEED certified stadium. Minnesota is a LEED certified stadium. Kansas City has made some great initiatives on the environmental side as far as with solar panels. Cincinnati with composting. So teams are making moves. It's just not on a massive scale as you would like to see, and especially where we're at is 2018, and clean technologies have come down in price since I started this, and they're definitely more affordable, but yet we haven't seen or heard much about it. And I think that's another thing that goes into it, is I think there needs to be a focus on the education. So when you're putting all this money into these stadiums that are not just kind of cost cutting for the ownership, but to educate the fans as to why the organization did that and why it's important, and to have some type of curriculum or a program that constantly educates and gets their fans more involved in rather than just recycling, but having a way to involve them to where they can monitor their own footprint and how they impact the environment themselves when they leave the stadium. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, it certainly is. Chris, David Bastel here. Great talking to you. Thanks for doing this so early in the morning. I know it's around 7:30 in the morning, Los Angeles time, California time. So we do appreciate it. You talked about the owners and so forth, but from the players' perspective, when you look at some of your teammates for players for the Planet, you got some pretty big names involved, like Ryan Braun, Russell Martin, Curtis Granderson, Giancarlo Stanton, football players, baseball players, all different walks of athletic life. How have the players reacted to your push, your presentation towards them on selling? Obviously it's a lifestyle. It's a great idea, and you talk about just changing people's habits of protecting the only planet we live on right now, and it's not just our lives, because you and I are around the same age, but it's our kids' lives. It's something that has to be done today that we can make an impact for later on.
Yeah, I don't think I think people. Obviously, I think they're aware of it, and I think just especially with this presidency and just the climate deniers and all this just negative stuff around it, when the evidence is at this point. 2007, it was kind of like walking on eggshells. 2007, 2008, as far as this went, it was walking on eggshells with the phrase climate change. But here we are. We've done it. They've done a second Inconvenient Truth, and what's going on. And it's not just the Al Gore documentaries. There are numerous documentaries that are documenting this. You can go on HBO and watch Vice every weekend, and there's a new story about something that is changing for the worse on this planet. So, I've been fortunate to have these guys join me, because I wanted to have guys that live that lifestyle, that, they have solar panels at home. Their second car is an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle. I'm sure you guys have read some of the articles. There was one in ESPN magazine about I call him Mike Giancarlo's love for just watching environmental documentaries. So it's there, and there are a lot of Southern California guys, is because that's kind of what we grew up and we learned the importance of kind of taking care of the environment and the damage that it does to our surroundings. So I've been fortunate enough to have these guys, and I really want to get these guys out and get some content and videos of these guys and how they go about their daily lives. And I think a lot of people will be surprised as far as their stewardship for the environment, whether it's just recycling, but the things that they've inundated in their homes that are energy saving, and they're utilizing these these green technologies and environmental technologies that are out there in their own lives, in their own homes and cars and resources. So it's really exciting.
We're in conversation with Chris Dickerson here on rawmike.richards.com and, of course, the dedicated YouTube channel. We appreciate, Chris, you joining us here today. You mentioned Russell Martin, and almost ironically, he plays in probably his building, one of the most offensive environmental buildings maybe in the league. It's almost the opposite of everything you just talked about. It is just a massive piece of concrete with everything artificial about it. In fact, a lot of people, when it was called Sky Dome, when it opened up, people were amazed. It was like the seventh wonder or the eighth wonder of the world with the big jumbotron, and now it just looks so archaic. Yeah. And you got people all of a sudden saying, well, maybe it's not so great that the roof was open and closing with all this concrete. It's like they've gone back to creating, what I think baseball really is, which is playing on grass, real dirt, outdoor stadiums. It's the opposite of what we have here in Toronto, to be honest.
Right. I feel like from an energy efficiency standpoint, I think that kind of it varies a lot, because when you close the dome, as far as managing the heat in the summer, then cool, but being on that massive thing, there's not I don't think the efficiency is there, but I think that's one of the stadiums. I mean, like you said, it is archaic. Where we're at, where modern stadiums are going. If you look at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, what they've accomplished with that is truly extraordinary. But it is Toronto, and it's such a progressive city, and I think eventually they will update, and I think it'll be worthy of where we're at in 2018 as far as environmental standards, and But you have to look back. I mean, that stadium is, how old is that stadium now?
Yeah, 1987, 1988, somewhere in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're due.
You know what? While we have you here, Chris, too, it's January the 23rd. Pitchers and catchers are reporting in about a month's time. So baseball, thankfully, will be back on the diamonds, back on the fields, and we're really looking forward to that. I had to ask you this, though, with the amount of free agents that are still out there, and free agents of significance. We're talking about the Arrietas, the Lorenzo Cains, JD Martinez, Yu Darvishes, guys like that. Are players starting to get nervous, or is it from the team side a point where like which side is it that is nervous right now, because it's about a month to go? Some of these big name players don't have spots to go, and obviously these are players that should be in Major League Baseball. Who's getting nervous, and what's going to happen right now?
Yeah, I think everybody's nervous. I don't think the ownership is nervous. They have nothing to be nervous about. They essentially they know that these guys need to play and they want to play. But as it gets closer, I think it's almost like the picket line. It's like, who's going to be willing to cross, and they're just going to drag this out. But I think it's a combination of patience on the owners and the GMs, and it's also with the major free agents are controlled by Boris, who's known for working very slow and working very late into free agency. I don't know. It's a really interesting situation, and I don't want to say that there possible collusion, but this has never happened as far as what we're seeing here, where people are getting dragged so late. It's essentially what I said on MLB a couple weeks, and this was a couple weeks ago, and nobody had signed. I think Jay Bruce signed the day after I left, but here we are. This is 3 weeks later, and still nobody is signed. And I think at this point, with going to spring training, I think those guys are kind of at the end of their career. There is a possibility that they're going to be forced to take a deal at minimum cost. I think this is going to be similar to like when Jermaine died back in the day, had the opportunity. He wanted, X amount of money. He wanted $10 million, but the fact is that he's at the end of his career, and it was really late. Spring training had already started, and he's forced to make a decision. Either you stay with what you think you're worth, or you take the reduced salary and you start playing. You stay in the game. So it really is interesting. I think this is unprecedented to see this amount of free agents be this late, especially with the profile of the free agents. But I do think there's a little bit more to what's going on than just the Boris that's dragging this out and going late until he has the right numbers for his guys. But there are other guys that Boris doesn't control that I'm surprised haven't signed. Just guys like Eduardo Nunez, who's a great player and is still out there. So it's really interesting. I'm really interested to see what happens moving forward. But I don't remember the article, but it was a great article on where we're at as far as with the Players Association and this look into collusion. It is. I'm not saying that's what it is, but it makes a very strong case, and I apologize for not being able to find the article
all good, my
right
man.
now, but it is fascinating.
Chris, I'm just curious. David mentioned Yu Darvish. What's the market like for him? What is the perception? Because you're on the biggest stage, getting that biggest start, and if you get cranked a couple of games on national television, does that necessarily translate into even that market value going down? What's your perspective on a Yu Darvish, and who would be interested?
I think people, you still have to be just interested. I think he's a quality. He's an ace pitcher. He's an elite talent. There's no doubt in that. But I think people forget is you look at someone like Kershaw, who's the most dominant pitcher in the game, and you look at his playoff struggles. And I was at Game 6 last year. For that Yu Darvish start, and I just kind of remember, obviously just a disappointment of him giving it up in Houston, but knowing that you're paid a lot of money because he is an elite talent and he is expected to go out and to be the pitcher that the Dodgers acquired, which is a top end starter, and I think he remains a top end starter. His reflection of what happened in the playoffs, I think, is no different. I think everybody has had meltdowns. I mean, Pedro had, of course, back in the day, even when he was he was at the top of his game, and him struggling against the Yankees. So it happens. That doesn't necessarily mean that his skill set has diminished. I think he's still a quality free agent and will likely bolster any of the best teams' starting rotations. So, I think I honestly thought he would actually go to Houston. I think that would have been a great fit, but the market is still out, and I think he's still a quality pickup for anybody, which I'm surprised somebody has not jumped at, because pitching is hard to come by, and to find when you have an ability to get a top quality starter, I think it's hard to pass on. So again, another concern as to where we're at and how these guys aren't signed yet. And I did find that article. It is it's a story that came out in Yahoo Sports, and it's called "Here's Why Baseball's Economic System Might Be Broken." And this was a Yahoo. So anybody who's out there listening, I think it's a very intriguing article about this particular free agency situation.
Oh, that's great stuff here this morning, Chris. Appreciate you joining us. I think you're the second Nevada Wolfpack guy that I've talked to. I'm trying to think. Was it Fajardo? Did he go to Nevada as well?
Trying to remember.
Who's that?
Fajardo, who played football. I thought he was a Wolfpack guy. What's it like going to school in Reno, by the way? We fantasize about stuff like that. And I'm thinking, Reno, yeah, are you swimming in a pool? Are you swimming laps? Are there showgirls? What goes on when you play for the Wolfpack? What happens there?
Well, we're talking about this is Reno and not Vegas. So imagine, take a 99-cent version of Vegas, and that's what you get. I mean, it's not the glitz and the glam of Vegas. It's it's a cozy little old mining town right by Lake Tahoe. So it's very bare. It's out in the Sierra Nevada kind of desert. It was a big shock coming from Southern California. I remember I froze my butt off the first couple months, but people often underestimate. It gets really cold there. It's a 30-minute drive from Lake Tahoe, so it's pretty chilly.
Chris, that's so great. Thanks so much for joining us here this morning. Best of luck once again with the foundation, because certainly the heart's in the right place, and so is the head when it comes to what you're undertaking here. So thanks so much for telling us about that today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
That is Chris Dickerson joining us, the former MLBer, and of course talking about players for the planet, something that, again, I think a lot of people may not know about, but it certainly in this day and age would be of real significance.
Yeah, very significant in considering, and it's funny because we probably could have talked to him a lot longer. He even talks about the current president and his denial of climate change and stuff like that. That's just scratching the surface on what's wrong and how people's mindset and just lifestyle have to go through some changes because it's what we have here. Once it leaves us, once we're out of natural resources or anything of that nature, they're gone. It's not like you're gonna just all of a sudden recoup it like you would, say, a bottle of Coke or a bag of chips or anything like that. That a natural resource is a natural resource because once it leaves the Earth's surfaces or any kind of foundation of it, it's gone for good, and it's something that a number of things that we have to protect as citizens of planet Earth.
It's very well said, Dave.
Thank you.
Which leads me to what happens when you get mad at someone on the ice in a crap league where you apparently have some anger management. I've never seen this before. I've never seen what this player is going to do. Not that I can think of. Not the way that it's done. Do you remember the Flintstones? Do you remember Bam Bam?
I do. Bam Bam. He used to carry a club with him. Sometimes I wish I would have done the same thing.
Well, if you wished it, this guy actually made it come true. Here is a full two-hander over the head.
Oh, no.
They're mixing it up. Camera's going to zoom in. Watch this. Oh, man. And then there's a melee. Everything's going on. All right, we got to play that again.
That's unreal.
Russell, if you could. I don't know what was going through his head or what he really felt someone did at that point, but he just goes, that does it. And just brings it up and full two-hander. Let's see that again. Okay, he's had enough, and I think the real damage is the fact that you probably broke a $300 stick.
Yeah, and you know what? The guy that did that, lifetime suspension. That's what it should be.
That is so. Russell, you've got a. What do you tell me? You've got a story that. Not you. You wouldn't have done something like that. No way.
No, not me.
Were you at the end of it, or did you?
It was someone on my team. We were in a tournament. He was one of the defensemen standing at the blue line, like offensive zone, which was right next to the other team's bench. Guys started chirping him. He took the stick to one of the guys' heads on the bench.
No, this must have been a very competitive tournament you're talking about. What was this?
It
Was
was
this like the Quebec minor Pee Wee tournament that we hear about?
what-
Something of that ilk?
Yeah,
Is
what
that-
was it? Silver Stick? What was it?
it was in Scarborough.
Oh,
I know
Oh,
that.
wow. All of a
okay.
sudden, I get that.
Oh.
Or otherwise known as the show.
Yeah, that's
And yeah, funnily enough, he had a 3-game suspension,
I
so
that's it.
missed the next game that we had.
That's
We had-
that tough for the season ticket holders.
Had a league game.
What
the
do you mean
same
Johnny's
day.
not playing? Was it Johnny? What was his name?
Marcus. I
Yeah,
think,
Marcus, whatever. Cheater.
Damn it, Marcus.
was still
Awful.
able to play in the finals of the tournament.
Well, that, and again, what a great story. As a goalie, I never got into a fight. I never.
Even after sticking all the
No,
people you
No.
stuck.
And see, that's the one thing. That was the one, I can tell you. The one thing that when the first camp I go to, it's Mike Keenan. And he goes up to my dad and says, he can play with these guys, but he's got to start protecting that crease. Because I never hit anybody.
Mm.
I was the anti-Billy Smith.
Oh.
Making a save. Are you okay? I was like, it's like it was.
That does not seem like
Yeah,
you.
no, I totally. I was very passive as a kid, and as a goalie, I certainly was. I didn't stick anybody. But if there was a fracas, a melee down at the other end,
Yes.
like what possesses a goalie to skate all the way down to the other end and start a fight?
When the other goalie's not.
And the other
doing
goalie's
anything.
going, "What are you doing?"
See because if the goalie closest to the action is involved in the action,
And he comes down to the action, absolutely.
then I could see a justification for it.
So
but-
this is South Dakota State, by the way, not the good one, not the good school. This is
No.
South Dakota State, and they get into, as you can see, the whatever the fracas was at the other end of the rink, and then this goalie all of a sudden starts skating up. I don't know what I do, because he's kind of staring at him. This is what happens when goalies go on goalies. Here comes State, and the other guy's like, "What are you doing?" "I don't know. What are you doing?" And here come the gloves. To me, to get in a fight, there's got to be a reason that I'd be throwing punches. So what do we make of this? What do we make of that? Are you enjoying the goalie fight, Russell? Did that make you excited? Like, were you excited for that? Physically excited?
I don't know. Goalie fights are fun, but like you said, I think they have to have meaning. Like,
I
and
don't
it
get
was.
that.
And it wasn't a fight, but I mean, I look at the one kind of brawl that happened with the Leafs in Vancouver last year, where Ryan Miller like jumped on Matt Martin when Matt Martin jumped Troy Stetcher, and then Freddie came all the way down the ice to get involved with Miller. Like, there's reason there.
Yeah, that's when, as you said, the goalie skates into where the actual action's happening. He comes down to kind of even up the scores, generally what you're talking about.
Bingo.
But if you're just standing there and you start skating down, unless there's some sort of history that we don't know about.
2 favorite goalie fights. Can you name any guesses on what mine would be?
Well, I think Billy Smith probably is in one of them, is he?
No. What is a maple leaf? Russell might know this one.
Okay, what is that one?
Russell will know this one.
Felix Potvin
Yes,
versus Ron Hextall.
okay.
Ron Hextall.
The greatest
yeah.
goalie fight in the history of the league,
Ooh,
in my opinion.
I
Greatest
don't
fight.
know. I don't know. See, my favorite goalie fight was Patrick Waugh, Mike Vernon, center ice. That was. But Felix, the thing I liked about the Felix Potvin fight was when he is tangling with Hextall, everybody's sitting there going, Ron is gonna crush him, and it was the exact opposite. Felix beat him up. It was awesome. But the Patrick Waugh, Mike Vernon center, like if anybody, and I know you were a little bit younger, but the Red Wings Avalanche rivalry for years, and you can go through the Claude Lemieux, Chris Draper BS, and all the other instances that happen. The hatred between those two teams was massive, and that fight between Vernon and Patrick Waugh was just outstanding. Center ice, and yeah, check it out. I think it was 1997, 1998, somewhere around that era, but And that was Patrick Waugh was a lot better fighter than a lot of people gave him credit for.
Well, they also had the fuse.
Yes, and I was going to say, and as a goalie of his status, he still had the little, and and once it went off,
Thus, the skating off and went, I'll never play for you again.
still an awesome display.
Although it was probably more, and they're going to play for you again.
And
Colis Tabanak.
he calls a shot, and he's still, and I thought to this day, he will be a Montreal Canadiens head coach at some.
You think
point.
so? Huh?
I still am convinced.
You think
that
so? Huh?
That's how I would say it
That's
too.
exactly what I'd say. I'm just looking at some Super Bowl numbers here because at some point we'll have some props in talking with Stephen Rapp and Phil Gray, who's going to be in studios at some point. The number now -5.
Ooh.
See it just drop it. See, because I think if you got in at like, there was a 6.
Open at 6.5.
6.5.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you did with the Jags when they got. Was that 9.5 plus 9.5?
Yeah, I got plus 9.5 on the Jags.
That's what the Sharps
and
did.
I countered it with a Minnesota Vikings bet.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of how did it go?
It's terrible.
Who's doing the halftime show, by the way? Who's doing the halftime show?
Bruno Mars? I think it's Bruno Mars and it's Justin Timberlake, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I think it is
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
So whatever. They never have the bands I like.
No.
So whatever. But I always think it's the other big thing is who sings the national anthem.
Oh, big time.
Now, as you know,
I think Pink is singing it this year.
Is it Pink?
Yeah.
She's still around?
Yeah, Blue wasn't available, so they went with Pink.
Well, did they go near a dumpster?
I'm not
What
saying
was that?
anything.
Liz Potty. What was that song she had when she first came out?
I don't know.
Russell, you know what it is. You probably love it. You love it. You love the dance stuff. Let's get this party started. Wasn't that hers?
Probably.
Get the party. Okay, whatever. That was a bang-on impression, by the way.
Very close.
So from what I'm, I guess that's the national anthem. There have been some other attempts, and by the way, there was a Canadian attempt at one point. Many people know from this show that the Nylons have appeared at almost every Grey Cup ever. And then, of course, they attempted the national anthem. I don't know if you know that. This is a couple of years ago where the Nylons attempted to sing the national anthem for the Super Bowl. And as you'll see, it didn't go well.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now direct your attention to center field for the singing of our national anthem as performed by Canadian recording artist, the Nylons.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what honey and the twilight lights gleaming?
Nice.
Whose broad path and bright stars? And the rocket's red.
No.
It was you.
Oh.
You can never remember. I wasn't.
Please get off our
No, it
field.
was you. Talk to the hand.
Get off.
Well. It's bad when the announcer tells you to get off.
That really happens.
Yeah.
Should have happened during Roseanne Barr's national anthem many years ago.
Remember she spit?
Yeah. Then grabbed her crotch, too.
Yeah.
What a loser.
Yeah. At least it looks sexy. I'd like to thank Chris Dickerson, former MLBer, who does actually some work on, I think, MLB.com, does
Yes,
he not?
sir. Yep.
And I think probably on SiriusXM does some work, former MLBer, Baltimore, what else? A bunch of other teams. But it was Players for the Planet is why we had him on the show here today. Now, coming up tomorrow, what do we have tomorrow?
Tomorrow is James Myrtle from The Athletic. He is the head honcho, basically, the what is he, senior editor, something like that. Good guy, knows his stuff. A lot of Maple Leaf talk.
Yeah, controversial.